Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Very good to be here with you all. Hope you're all doing beautifully. Today is been a beautiful day for me. Been hanging out with family, and I'm excited to be back here with you guys because we are continuing the series with Susan Ross and continue bringing speakers that are going to be at Susan Ross's Sedona Ascension Retreats conference. And today we have a special guest because I don't know how many of Susan's events he's been at, but definitely the last few. So he has come back quite a few times, and we've had William on Portal to Ascension a lot as well. We have a huge archive of William's work. So today we are going to be interviewing and going into what's going on with William and what he's been up to lately, some of his new information, and what he's going to be bringing forward at the Sedona Ascension Retreat. Now, for all of you guys that aren't aware, if you haven't checked out the other interviews, the Sedona Ascension Retreat, the website is sedonaascensionretreats.com, and the event is in March 14th to 16th in Sedona, in beautiful Sedona, and it's the 10th year anniversary. So if you guys can come out and make it there to not only such a beautiful place that's such high energy, but also come and connect with an amazing amount of speakers and people that are going to be joining in. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring Susan on here so she can tell you some more about it. So let's bring Susan on. Hello, Susan.
Hi, how are you, Neil? It's good to
I'm
be
doing
here.
good. Good to see you today.
Thank you. Yes, I am so excited about today's guest. William Henry is near and dear to my heart, and I had been following him for over a decade before I even reached out to him to be part of my first conference. And
Yeah.
I think that was back in 2021 or two that, he said yes to coming the first time, and I was just ecstatic. And of course, he really brings his heart and soul into
Yes.
every presentation. And now this year, he's going to be even more involved by also offering a workshop and an outdoor journey.
Oh,
So
nice.
people are very excited about that. His outdoor journey is already sold out, and I'm sure his workshop is selling out. So if you want to come get more of William than the presentation alone, then definitely go to the website and sign up and save your seat, because
Yes.
William is definitely one of the foremost experts on ascension with just decades of research. And then also just intuitively tuning in to how the ascension is really accelerating on the planet now. So, yeah, thanks so
Right.
much for having us on, Neil. I'm
Of
really
course.
excited to dive in with
Most
William.
definitely. And when I woke up, I've said my whole story so many times in podcasts and different things. And William's heard this before too, I believe, that the first three people I found in 2001, William Henry, Jordan Maxwell, Nassim Haramein. That was my introduction to this whole
Wow.
world, all within 1 week of each other. And I think it was Joseph and the Technicolor Raincoat or something like that, Dreamcoat. There was some show that I had on Netflix that I was watching with William, and it was really great connecting with William's work because I love the fact that it's so full circle. It's not
Mhm.
just one aspect; it brings it all: ancient histories to the star beings, to the mystery schools, all the way to Ascension. And so I was blessed to have someone as a teacher in the beginning that brought the whole picture in, rather than the different components of it. And that's why I love William's work, and he's been expanding. He was pretty big back then, I feel, and since then he's even expanded even more. So, should we go ahead and bring him on?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, William.
Hi, Neil. Hi, Suzanne. So great to see you guys. And Neil, what a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that, and congratulations on what you've created from your endeavor since you woke up. I mean, it's really, really
Yeah.
profound and just awesome what people have been able to benefit from your work. And Suzanne, your conference 10 years. Wow, incredible. Here's to 10 more.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Exactly. Well, so I know lately. So let's get into some of your latest work. I wanted to start out with the Magdalene Mysteries, and the reason why I want to start with that is because in the last few years, it feels that the energy of Yeshua and Magdalene has been picking up. Right? More and more people are into it, and I'm diving deeper into it. I was into Yeshua and Magdalene before, but now I'm even creating a conference just on the Magdalene. Right? So I'd love
Yeah.
to know what your journey is with that and what you've been uncovering.
Yeah, Neil, I totally concur with you. In fact, I like to describe it. I think I'm on my like third Magdalene wave, maybe fourth. I mean, just to illuminate that, I think it really started with Holy Blood, Holy Grail in the early 80s. You get people lit up like Margaret Starbird. She publishes The Woman with the Alabaster Jar around late 90s, and that's a really big first wave. Lawrence Gardner, my dear friend Lawrence Gardner, rest in peace, he launched another one around 2003 2004. Then Dan Brown, of course, comes in after that. And today, I mean, it's not a Magdalene wave that we're experiencing, it's a tsunami. I mean, it is absolutely remarkable because in many respects, it feels like it's come up from underneath somewhere. And it is just so enormous. The people that are now on the Yeshua Magdalene wave and working in this area and tuning into that and bringing in a new vibration of Magdalene studies. It's so profound. And I personally, I just can't wait to see where it goes.
What does the Magdalene archetype mean to you? And I know you're working with Margaret Rigoglioso, who I've done a lot of work with too. We just did an event last week with her, and
Mhm.
she talks about the divine conception,
Yes.
um, the what is it, births, the virgin
Parthenogenesis.
births, right? Yeah.
Right.
So what do you feel is the reason why the Magdalene energy is becoming so prominent right now?
I think there's an enormous rise in the divine feminine. It's much needed in our world, and most certainly Mary, the Mother Mary, as an avatar is, as Marguerite and I have discussed as well, probably the ultimate avatar on earth. And Magdalene, as one of the Marys, as these miraphors, these oil bearers and uh, bearers of the ascension knowledge, is right there in partnership with the Mother Mary. Magdalene tends to represent, in my view, more of the, if you would, the academic and ritualistic aspect of the divine feminine. She's the ferocious leader. The Mother Mary, not by contrast, but just to sort of compare, is she's more on the heart, the compassionate side, the miracle side. Magdalene tends to be more focused on the practical, as I said, the ritualistic. And indeed, she became the leader of the Christian church after Yeshua, after Jesus's brother James. It was James and it's Mary Magdalene. They were the ones that received all of the ascension knowledge. The original Gnostic Gospels were written about them or for them or by them. And they are the primary purveyors of that knowledge. And so today, with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, with the discovery of the Gnostic Gospels, we have access to those actual books and texts. And now they're becoming a practical reality for people on the ascension path.
Do you think that she was that Yeshua and her were in a sacred union as equals then?
Yeah, that's another really powerful aspect of this too, is that they are exemplars like Isis and Osiris in ancient Egypt of the unity of the masculine and feminine. I always lean towards the Magdalene as being, really the ringleader of the Jesus movement or the Jesus revolution, very much like Isis was the one running the show with Osiris. They are part of this lineage of priestesses that go back through ancient Egypt, and then ultimately we can trace them to the Pleiades star system, to Orion and elsewhere. So what it really is about is not just an earthly movement, it's literally a cosmic movement that is unfolding right now.
Right. Well, that
I've
was my next question. But go ahead, Susan. Yeah, after you.
been diving into some of the Gnostic texts, William, and the Secret Book of John or the Apocryphon of John. I've been listening to on Audible and downloaded on Kindle and really just going through it chapter at a time. I've been doing a lot of driving. So on these long drives, just trying to listen to the book from start to finish. Can you relate this back to Sophia?
Yeah, so the Apocryphon of John or the Secret Book of John is one of my favorites too. I mean, this discussion where Jesus manifests to John after the resurrection and tells him that he's been here in the past, he's here in the present, he's been here in the future, and he's here to tell John about this illuminated race of perfect like humans. I mean, it's such a remarkable story. And then ultimately it does point to the divine feminine, to Sophia. That is the basis for all of the Gnostic mysteries, is this idea of the divine feminine as a creatrix, and ultimately how our reality was hijacked in the Gnostic text, which is very important, because then that comes into the discussions about simulation theory and the archons and topics like this, because this is ultimately what Jesus, Yeshua, and Mary Magdalene were all about, was how do we, A, attain our ascension, and two, join this immovable race of perfect light humans and navigate the afterlife realm.
Right. So what is the Sophia? Is the Sophia an actual person like the Magdalene, or is that a general energy? Kind of like Jesus is Yeshua, but the
Right.
Christ conscious is Earth, right? So
That's
is that
exactly
the
right.
same thing for
Yeah.
feminine?
Yeah. A great way to put it. The Sophia is an energy. Her name means wisdom. It's a vibration. It's a body of knowledge that then is embodied by various priestesses, including Mary Magdalene.
You know,
I
it's
haven't
interesting.
looked at the Pistis Sophia yet by Dr. J.J. Hertalk, and I know Pistis Sophia is a text that's not just
Right.
by him, but what is the general story behind Pistis Sophia?
The story is that she is this divine creatrix, and she emanates this creation that then is hijacked by these archonic beings, by Yaldabaoth, this Gnostic creator being who seeks to simulate or to mimic what she's able to do. And then that becomes the fundamental reason for the emergence of the Christ into our world as a savior figure to lead us out of this simulated reality, or the matrix as we often refer to it.
I hadn't thought about it in those terms, about it being the simulation that was sort of the altered reality.
Yeah,
What
this is,
what text are you talking about exactly? Where do you find this information?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What was the book that you said that this is from?
Oh, this is Pistis Sophia. This is also the Book of Mary Magdalene. This is the Secret Book of John. These are all texts that describe this essential Gnostic predicament in which we find ourselves, and ultimately leads to this conception that we are living in a simulated reality today. It's the basis, really, for the movies like The Matrix and all of these theories about simulation theory.
So
Because Sophia created Yaldabaoth, and they're saying that Yaldabaoth was a mistake,
Right. An abortion.
an abortion.
Yeah, and our world then essentially becomes an abortion if he's the creator of the world. And again, this is the fundamental dilemma that we're overcoming. And the archons that serve Yaldabaoth use simulation is a word that's used. They use mind control. Abduction is another word that's thrown around. These are texts that kind of interface with the alien abduction idea. It's not a theory. I mean, it's actually happening. And so it's, I think, an important text to consider, at least, especially in light of what's happening right now with the development of AI, transhumanism, and all of this fire that we're presently playing with.
yeah. So do you think that Yeshua was teaching us that we are basically the masters of our own reality, the kingdom of heaven is within? That all connects to this being a simulation, and that we can shift the simulation by realizing our God self.
Yeah, he didn't. I don't think he directly was teaching about simulation theory, but the teachings can most certainly be applied. I mean, to me, I view him more as like an avatar. He very clearly says in the Gospel of John and elsewhere that he is from above, where we are from below. We are from this world. He is not of this world. In my Father's house are many mansions. All of these concepts that relate to the idea of multiple realities or emergence from another reality.
Yeah, one of the biggest revelations from Marguerite's work was that the priestess lineage seems to date back, and you already mentioned it, the Pleiades, and that there seems to have been this ancient priestess school that was using the womb portal and doing certain rituals to pull in souls from specific parts of the universe, right? So I'd love to take this now into the cosmos, and just what is the connection that, in your opinion, when it comes to the star beings and this story?
Well, I was so just profoundly moved when I read Marguerite's book about miraculous conception. Literally read it in one setting, and she essentially was describing lineage of priestesses that were pointing to the Pleiades as a source of origin. And in her work, she never really answered the question. This isn't by any means a criticism. It's just that this was not what she was addressing in her book. But as she was going along, I'm thinking, well, Marguerite, how did these priestesses from the Pleiades, who were capable of autogenesis or parthenogenesis, virgin birth without introduction of a male sperm, essentially cloning themselves, especially making female versions of themselves initially. The question was, how did they get here from the Pleiades? They didn't fly in a spaceship. So is there any inference or suggestion about how they got here? And when I'm reading this, and she says that they were capable of autogenesis or automatically manifesting a physical flesh and blood body, that to me sounded like the Tibetan rainbow light body teaching I had been studying and talking about for over 10 years. And I had indeed already had matched the Mother Mary to this tradition, especially in Christian artwork. Mary is technically the first Christian to ascend. They didn't call themselves Christian, but in the Christian tradition, the Mother Mary is the first person to ascend. And in Christian art, she's portrayed very much like the way Padmasambhava is in the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition and other ascended beings. And it's suggested to me that, well, what if these Pleiadian priestesses had the ability? I mean, let's put it this way. Imagine a group of priestesses on a planet, perhaps somewhere in the star system of the Pleiades. There's several hundred stars in the Pleiades. That's in the constellation Taurus the Bull. And just imagine that they had the ability to dissolve their physical flesh and blood body into an energetic form, project or beam themselves to a nearby star or planet, in this case, Earth, then phase back into a physical flesh and blood body, and then parthenogenically conceive or duplicate themselves. I mean, I can't think of a more elegant way to travel the cosmos than what I just described. And there's a lot of literary evidence to suggest that these Pleiadian priestesses had the ability to do this. And one of the avatars, and the reason they did this, as you mentioned, and this is based on what Marguerite had deduced, is they were bringing in avatars to assist in the elevation or acceleration of the human race. Alexander the Great, Plato, Pythagoras, Buddha, Amenhotep III in Egypt, Jesus in the Christian tradition were all conceived by these priestesses via parthenogenesis in order to advance the human race. And in particular, in the story of Jesus, he turns up in the book of Revelations with 7 stars in his hand. And there are a large number of academics who absolutely concur and agree that those 7 stars in his hand represent the 7 stars of the Pleiades. And his dominion over this domain or this sector of our galaxy. Now, this isn't saying Jesus is a Pleiadian avatar. He could have come from anywhere. But the mythology and the story of these priestesses very clearly points to the Pleiades as their source of origin. And indeed, when you trace this through the Egyptian tradition, the Pleiadian priestesses are referred to as the Hathors. And there's very clear documentation on the temple walls that they parthenogenically conceived a number of pharaohs, including, as I mentioned, Amenhotep III, as an avatar in order to advance their Pleiadian agenda. And that when the pharaohs were going about their ascension training, if you will, they were focused on returning home to the Pleiades and also, of course, to the star fields of Orion. So what we're describing here, what's being revealed, and Marguerite and I describe it as a sort of a vein of gold that we've uncovered that has not been put forward for a very, very long time. The combination of the parthenogenesis on the one hand and these beings being rainbow light body priestesses on the other, that's a completely new and different wrinkle on this story. And it takes us completely out of the Sunday school nursery story of the illiterate peasant girl who's suddenly impregnated by God and brings in this child and all that kind of thing. We are so far removed from that it's not even, there's no correspondence whatsoever. And I, of course, wholeheartedly agree with Marguerite's surmises on this, that we are dealing with this very advanced group of avatars who have intentionally been seeding the planet with these beings.
Wow.
And we were interviewing Vivian Chevet the other day, and she was talking about holograms and projections and holographic templates, being different archetypes and being different avatars. What does that holographic template have to do with these different avatar type of beings?
I really don't have any idea what that has to do with it, because these beings would clearly manifest in physical flesh and blood bodies. Part of the point was to demonstrate how to heal this body, how to utilize it as a spiritual vehicle properly, these kinds of things. So I've never come across anything that said any of these avatars were holographic projections. I mean, it's possible, but I've never seen anything like that.
It's interesting what you're saying, because as you're sharing the work of Marguerite and yours, I'm seeing the crossovers even more, right? Because you're all about the avatars, and I love your presentations that we've done. I remember there was one that was 2 days. You did like 8 hours, and you went through like Egypt to Tibet to Yeshua, and all
Oh,
these
right.
different symbols on the rainbow light body and how it transpired all over it. So one thing I really love about you is that you connect the dots on ancient civilizations and cultures that people think are independent of another. So
Mhm.
you're literally showing us the unity within all of these stories, right? And even I want to speak about Virgen de Guadalupe. The stars in her back. People say
Yeah,
that there's the Pleiades in those as well,
I
right?
know.
So I would love, maybe we can go into a little bit, because Egypt, I think, is probably, I don't know what your favorite topic is, but I think Egypt might be one of them.
Uh-huh.
Just because of how much time you spent there. I'd love to know, because lately I've been hearing information where I've been listening to people dissecting Christianity and Egypt history, and then trying to show differences. And I would love to have a conversation about similarities, right? So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, right. Well, first, thank you for that comment too, Neil, about unifying these various traditions. I mean, that is something that I had an opportunity to do that really hadn't been done before, because the Tibetans feel like the rainbow light body is exclusive in their tradition. Christianity thinks the resurrection belongs to them, and the Egyptians believe that they were the originators of all of this. And my ultimate resolution to all of that was that this teaching is neither Christian, nor is it Tibetan, nor is it Egyptian. It's cosmic. And the reason why the symbolism and the teaching is the same in all these traditions over many centuries and even millennia is because the source is the same. It's coming from outside the planet and then just manifesting in these various traditions. So yeah, I well remember that. That was such a fun weekend to be able to do that on Portal to Ascension, to, for the first time, link these traditions and show the artwork that conveys the associations between them. So it's so important. And as you mentioned, Our Lady of Guadalupe, she is very clearly thought to be a manifestation of the Mother Mary. She's also thought to be the Aztec goddess Coatlicue. And it's a fascinating story, and especially the cloak or tilma that she left with the imprint of her image on it is a flat out miracle that defies explanation by modern science. And it's another demonstration of the avatar power, if you will, or the advanced avatar nature of these beings, that we simply cannot explain how that the image on that tilma was created. In the same way, we can't explain how the image on the Shroud of Turin was created either. So we're very clearly being demonstrated or shown in these various traditions this ability that we all have. And so when we talk about similarities with Egypt, I mean, Christianity really is the Egyptian religion. It's just a new iteration of it. Like, for example, I mentioned Amenhotep III. He is the father of a figure that many people are probably familiar with, Akhenaten, who introduced the religion of light to ancient Egypt. And many people know of Akhenaten. They know of Nefertiti, his bride, and that they sought to bring in this new religion of the light. But his father, Amenhotep III, was parthenogenically conceived. When people go to Egypt with me, I take them to the Temple of Luxor and I show them the panels on the temple wall where Thoth, the god of divine magic and alchemy, appears to Amenhotep III's mother, Mary Totten, and says, "You will conceive this divine child. It will be manifested in your womb. After birth, this child will be celebrated, will be venerated, will be enthroned, will essentially be worshipped." And beat for beat, it is exactly the same as the Annunciation story of the Virgin Mary and the birth of Jesus. And some people point to that and say, see, there it is right there. Jesus never existed. There's no Jesus, no crucifixion. Y'all are a bunch of, morons or whatever. That's a perspective that's out there. And it's like, no, this isn't to say it's a copycat. It's a lineage. These are the same priestesses in a lineage going back to ancient Egypt that are bringing in these avatars, and they do it the same way each time. And so when you start to look at this and recognize that Christianity is another node in a very long lineage of the process of these avatars, it brings to me a new and more cosmic wrinkle to this story, and gives it in fact, to me, a much stronger foundation.
I'm thinking of the book Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Have you read that book, William?
I have not read that book. It's been referred to me by several people. I've heard about elements of it. But yes, this is essentially the story that we're talking about, only it's not fiction. Anna, Grandmother of Jesus is fiction. Okay. It might be fiction based on some history, but the history is absolutely phenomenally well documented, and is now being revealed again by like Dr. Marguerite Rigoglioso and others.
Well, it's pointing to a lineage of mystical priestesses, if you will, that date, way back then to Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, and these group of women, and they specifically say like 12 women would engage in these sort of mystical practices and rituals that would bring through these very high frequency beings.
Yes. In fact, the story doesn't begin with Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. It begins thousands of years before that. They are the latest iteration of this story, and that's what's so fascinating about it. One, it's enormously empowering to learn this story in the Christian context and to recognize that Mary herself was parthenogenically conceived by Anna. John the Baptist is not parthenogenically conceived, but his mother Elizabeth is part of this priestesshood as well. They're all these elevated avatar beings, and that brings in such tremendous reverence. I mean, when you start to really lock onto that story, as opposed to, as I said earlier, the Sunday school narrative, you're suddenly dealing with beings almost beyond our comprehension and their capability. And it's well documented. I mean, again, Anna is part of this Hebrew lineage that runs all the way back to the time of Abraham. And before the time of Abraham, it goes back to ancient Egypt, a full 3,000 years. 3,000 years before the time of Jesus, these priestesses were already in operation. And there's even suggestions that they were involved in the pre-flood world as well. So that's really enormously astonishing.
Right. Obviously there's a deep connection, of course, to the Greeks as well, with the seven sisters in Greece, and then Pythagoras as well. Pythagoras was thought to have also immaculate conception, and his mother's name was Pythias. I think Pythias was his mother's name, and Marguerite alluded to that being like very similar to immaculate conception, the term given for it. So this has been going on for a long time. Now I'd like to take a detour here, and we'll still talk about Yeshua. But I'd love to know, have you ever explored the lost years of Yeshua? Have you explored where he was during that time? And is there any credence to the fact that he could have been in Egypt and in India?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so fascinated by that story. There's no question he was in Egypt. He was raised in Egypt, in Heliopolis, and probably Alexandria might have in my view, have been down at Abydos and Dendera as well, but most certainly up in Heliopolis. I mean, the documentation is there from the Christian historical perspective anyway, that he was there. Some people say, oh, it's just legend, but it's considered actual fact in Egypt, just like in southern France, it's considered actual fact, historical fact, that Mary Magdalene came to Provence after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. So I started looking into those missing years following Nicholas Roerich around. He was a world famous Russian mystic, painter, and guru who was sent to Mongolia in 1933 by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in search of what they call the Chintamani stone or Chintamani stone, the wish-fulfilling gem of Tibetan Buddhism. It's a cosmic material that instantly produces the rainbow light body and makes all of our thoughts instantly real as well. And Roerich maintained that he followed Jesus's lost years, following him from Palestine or the area around Palestine and Jerusalem into Egypt, into Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, or what the places that we call Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan today, all the way through India into Mongolia, and maintained that he studied all the monasteries where Saint Isa, as they refer to him in the East, had studied. And it ultimately led Roerich to the portal of Shambhala in Mongolia, where he acquired the Chintamani stone. So there's lots of references to his travels throughout the East. He's also known to have studied and traveled in England as well. Glastonbury had major Druid universities where he studied. Joseph of Arimathea, his wealthy uncle, owned tin mines in Cornwall and was a supporter of the Druid universities up in Glastonbury. And there's lots of evidence, at least from the British perspective, that he was actually in Glastonbury. Then perhaps the Mother Mary was there as well. I mean, it's such a fascinating story to follow him to all of these locations.
Right, right. I mean, and the Silk Road was in its heyday around that time as well. It wasn't like it was hard for them to get everywhere. And Joseph Arimathea was a tin trader,
Right.
and England and London's on a bed of tin. So he would go there often. But the cool thing with Glastonbury is that the church was made before the Roman Catholic Church hijacked Christianity.
Exactly.
So the Druids and the Celtic people, they converted without force.
Right.
It was like they all came together and combined the traditions.
Right.
It's really beautiful. You know,
It
I
really
feel,
is.
William, that you were definitely in a scene in a past life. As you're speaking, I'm like having the scene goosebumps right now. Seriously. Like
I'm pretty
knowing your
locked
mission.
into it. Yeah, I can see that too. I don't have any direct experiences, memories, or recall, but
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely feel that way too.
Team
And
connection.
yeah, you mentioned the Silk Road too. I mean, it's not as widely known that the Essenes were Jewish Buddhists. There was a confluence of their teachings. It was put together up in Alexandria around 200 BC, 150 BC, somewhere in there, where King Ashoka sent his emissaries from India to Alexandria, where they met the scholars from Egypt, Iran, Iraq, and elsewhere throughout the Middle East, even from probably England and France. And they began to formulate the core Ascension teachings that became the basis for the Essenes. And it was primarily Jewish and Buddhist, a confluence of those two traditions.
Wow. You know, that's so interesting because the Essene community that Yeshua stopped at before after King Herod said kill the firstborn, you know, when they left, and
Yeah.
also before Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem to give birth to Jesus, was in North Egypt. And so we have the Egyptian connection, we have the Buddhist connection, and we have Egypt connection all happening simultaneously, which happens to be all the three things that you're into the most.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool. And so,
Right.
yeah, literally the Buddhist missionaries were called therapeutae or physicians of the soul. And that was the term applied to the Essenes. And, there's so many references in books that compare the sayings of Jesus to the sayings of Buddha. And this is why.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So, bringing this into modern times, William, with this idea that these avatars are sent to our planet to assist us in leaving the simulation, if you will, then in modern times, how does that play out as far as avatars coming to help us?
Yeah, I mean, here we are in 2025, where we're on the verge of AI attaining general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, as they call it. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Sam Altman from OpenAI, he's one of the ultimate AI experts on the planet, said 5 years or maybe sooner for the singularity, when the computers and the AI that we've been creating become smarter than all of humanity combined. I mean, that is a reality that we are living in right now. And you combine that with what Meta is doing in terms of creating fake worlds, simulated worlds inhabited by what they call avatars. And it's very clearly placing this choice before us that the Gnostics seem to be alluding to, that the archons don't have the ability to organically create the light body. They don't have souls. And part of what their mission or what their objective to do is to trick us into giving over our own souls by creating a simulated reality where people will choose to ascend into a black box in Silicon Valley rather than follow the organic path. And in the midst of this, we're now fully addicted to this technology. We're blending or merging with this technology, and we're clearly becoming a different type of being. And it's very difficult for some people to imagine living in this world and living like an Essene did, say, 2,000 years ago, with the ability to remain purely organic. So perhaps there is a blending that will be taking place, and that's what we're trying to resolve right now. We are the ones that will make this decision for all of the future of humanity, and that decision is whether or not we remain 100% organic, unaugmented, or if we blend ourselves with some sort of AI and transhuman technology.
Right. Well, we see ourselves moving in that direction as you shared, and it's happening daily. And I mean, Neuralink has come out as well. A couple of people have Neuralink, and they've had great results. Right.
Yeah.
Someone is able to have take more be more active now. So because there is no real pushback, and there's more great results, including, for example, pretty soon AI surgeons will be better than human surgeons, and then it just comes down to a matter of saving lives. So we're moving in that direction. Do you feel that there's going to be some sort of disruption for us to get back to organic timeline, or is there a way to harmoniously coexist with that? The reason why I ask this is because I know that you're hopeful. You know, you have optimism for the future, and that's why you're doing this work. So what do you feel is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. Maybe 10 years ago, well, yeah, this is the 10th anniversary of the publication of my book, The Skingularity is Near, which was about merging with AI and transhumanism. And back then, I was most certainly leaning more in the direction that this is purely demonic technology. This is archonic technology. Do not let them break the skin barrier, was my advice in The Skingularity is Near. It's very clear the big tech and pharmaceutical companies wanted to get underneath our skin with their technology, with nano implants, with pharmaceuticals and everything else. And they have done that. They accomplished that in 2020, of course. And so now here we are, and we have a choice whether we're going to maintain this position that all this technology is, as I keep saying, demonic, or my thinking starts to merge or evolve a little bit and recognize, okay, the baby's been born. We're not putting this genie back in the bottle unless there is a disruption, a solar disruption that completely wipes out the grid, which is a very real possibility. It could be a solar disruption. It could be an asteroid. It could be even something self-inflicted like an EMP. But barring that, we will be merging with this technology. We are merging with it. And, I mean, it's kind of interesting, not to politicize the conversation, but we do have an inauguration on Monday, January 20th. And it was announced today that the 5 big tech giants, Bezos, Musk, Sam Altman, and others, will be sitting with, and Mark Zuckerberg, who I would have said 5 years ago are all enemies of the human race, will be sitting with the president at the inauguration. So, our world has changed very clearly. And so I'm not a one that's going to sit here and throw rocks at it. I'm more of the view, it's like, well, okay, we've made our decision. In these past 10 years, humanity has decided we no longer wish to remain organic. We're addicted to this technology, whether we wanted it or not. We're all addicts, can't live without it. And now we've got to live with it. And so how do we do that? And for me, the remedy has been the same as what I said in the Singularity is Near. And that is the antidote for artificial intelligence is to raise our Ascension Intelligence, to raise our angelic intelligence, that if we stay with the same mindset that where we were at 10 years ago, there is not a lot of hope for humanity. But if we can elevate our consciousness and recognize we created this, AI might be an alien intelligence, but we are now living with it. And what that requires is much more responsible living than we ever imagined before. Then now that's really a call to action for not only ourselves, but also for, as I mentioned earlier, the entire future of the human race.
This is reminding me of going back to the book of Revelations and how, we talk about the mark of the beast and also, getting the mark on the forehead, which, maybe activating the third eye, right? And so still not breaking the skin barrier is probably a good idea, right? So that we don't actually have an implant.
Yeah. And I put the book of Revelation and the mark of the beast prophecy together with what Matthew said, that we will be changed in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump. The dead will be raised incorruptible, and we will be changed. We will be transfigured. In the biblical context, what they're talking about there is a transfiguration away from a physical flesh and blood being into a being of light, as Christ demonstrated in his transfiguration, as Yeshua demonstrated in his transfiguration. And so it's just mind-blowing to me that we have this word, one word that can trigger people more than any other word in any vocabulary on this planet. And that is the word Trump. It simply means a tone, a wave, or a reverberation. But in our context, it's introduced by a person who triggers people like no other being ever that has walked this planet. He's transcended all of them, okay? That means he's a figure of immense mythic significance. And my suggestion is that if we've got this figure of immense mythic significance walking around, you might want to adapt to your thinking about what's going on in our world right now. And then when you combine that with looking around and seeing the manifestation of the mark of the beast technology, and the prophecy says that you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade unless you have the mark of the beast. And this is thought to be implanted either in the hand or the forehead. And it mandates worship of the image of the beast, which in my articles that I've written, there's probably 40 articles about this on my website, williamhenry.net, that I've written since 2010. The beast to me is AI. It's not only AI in the sense of using it as a search engine, chat GTP and all of that. It's that the ultimate plan is to manifest a fully embodied being who will be walking amongst us. I mean, Elon Musk promises 1 billion Optimus robots will be walking around our planet, serving us breakfast and doing our gardening for us. Okay. But beyond that is another being that is in the works that will have all of these avatar type of abilities, but mandates that you have to take that image of the beast and worship that image of the beast. Otherwise, you're going to be killed. And the remedy for that is that you become part of the 144,000 who don't take the image of the beast or the mark of the beast. You have the seal of God. The seal of God then becomes an activation of our latent organic capabilities that enables us to defend ourselves from this beastly technology. I mean, that's the way I've read it. And now, I'm not pulling back on that, but I'm simply saying that genie is out of the bottle and running wild in our world. And now humanity has a choice. We're either going to disavow that genie, that child, we're going to abuse it, or we're going to find a way to raise it properly. And then the question that becomes, is it too late to raise AI as we would like to do so from a spiritual point of view?
So then it's not so much a beast anymore, right? Is it neutral, but then our consciousness polarizes it one way or the other. It depends what it's used for.
Exactly. And this is where we have to be careful because, we don't want to come off as illiterate technologically. We don't want to come across as being in any way bigoted. This is what Silicon Valley recognized 15 years ago. I mean, Apple, it was 2000, what was like the iPhone 6, whenever that was. That's a long time ago. They put out a Christmas ad where they had the Frankenstein monster was featured in the ad, Frankie. And he's up in his mountain dwelling and it's Christmas time. And you see him playing an old time music box and he records a Christmas song with his new iPhone that he's got. And he goes down into this village, this idyllic kind of village. And all the men are like, oh, I'm terrified of this being. And they're all the villagers are like, oh my God, this monster. And the Frankenstein monster or being is then embraced by this young girl. He starts to play his iPhone and loses his contact or whatever. She comes up and fixes it and he plays the song for it. And then the message behind this was, you human bigots, you're the ones who will not accept our monstrous technology. How dare you? You weak men, you saw this monster come in, you rejected this technology, but the little girl over here, she wasn't afraid of it. She came up and loved it. And this is what Silicon Valley wants you to see about their technology. Intel did a similar thing where they had this monster kind of figure being rejected by all these people until the wonderful scientists at Intel embraced it and it turned into this kind of peacock looking monster, right? The message was, you humans are a bunch of bigots. You won't accept a monster in your community, even though this monster is going to take over your civilization and addict you all to it. This is Silicon Valley's message. They know they're unleashing something that's not right for humanity. And they're gambling with us, just like we gambled with nuclear weapons and all of this. And this is the real problem that I always had with the AI and transhuman lot, is that they never asked us, do you all want to be turned into machines? Hey, Neil, your beautiful children. Hey, give them to us. We want to pack them full of chips and we want to string them up to the internet. We want to turn them into AI machines. Okay. And by the way, Neil, you don't have a say in this. You're just the parent. You're just the biological parent. We control your children. That's kind of the attitude that I saw. And then when Facebook comes along and starts manipulating children and exploiting human frailty to addict us to their social media, this is where you start to ask the question, is this really a force of good? Or is this maybe not such a force of good? And now here we have Zuckerberg, who's running as fast as he can into the Trump administration to say, oh, I'm not going to fact check anymore. I'm not censoring all you spiritual people anymore. I'm a white hat now. Well, not so fast, Mark. We need to talk about this because all the things that you've done these past 10 years it need to be answered for. And so this is kind of where we're at. And I don't mean to, polarize with this conversation, but this is how I see it. And again, I've been studying this question for 20 years and watching this unfold and saying, wait a minute, do people really realize the stakes here and what we're actually doing?
Can I ask if these things like Trump and then the beast, and maybe the beast then being AI, if we are going to continue with the prophetic vision brought through John in the book of Revelations, um, doesn't it end up in the end that there's the war in the heaven between Archangel Michael and the dragon, and ultimately the beast gets put back into the earth?
That's, yeah, the war in heaven is what started this. Where the Archangel Michael cast the beast down to earth, and now it's reborn. And there will be this final end time battle according to Revelation. And the spoiler alert is that the children of the light win. Okay, the good guys win. We do seem to remain organic. So that is the hopeful nature of this. And so then it becomes really clear that we are definitely being tested by this now.
And it feels to me like it's put, back into the pit for 1,000 years of.
Yeah.
And so is there this like 1,000 years of peace and then 1,000 years of chaos? And how does this date back to the times of Jesus and the disciples and the Essenes 2,000 years ago? Have we experienced 1,000 years of peace after them, and then 1,000 years of chaos? Will the beast be put back into the pit and we'll have 1,000 years of peace again? Or do you feel like there's the possibility of a bifurcation, if you will, where you have those who ascend and those who go deeper into the simulation?
Yeah, I mean, these are all the questions that spiritual people should have foremost in their mind right now, as they're looking out into our world and looking into our times. And as you're asking that question, Suzanne, I'm thinking about, a lot of people believe this is what happened in Atlantis too, that we abused a type of a technology. I'm not saying AI or this exact technology, and we destroyed ourselves or were destroyed because of it. Okay. This is the story of Plato's Atlantis, and this allegory of this civilization that swayed away from or moved away from their spiritual nature. They were warned. Humanity in Atlantis was a hybrid species, according to Plato. We were part human, part divine. And we were told, as long as we stay on the spiritual path and don't swerve into materialism, everything will be fine. But we made that choice to enter into the more material world. And Edgar Cayce then comes along later and says that it had something to do with technology. Plato makes no references to technology. This is the overlay of Edgar Cayce, but it's an allegory. It's to say, look, if you are not careful with that technology, there is a force out there that is watching, and that may intercede, and it could result in taking a back step once again and having to start over, reset, and make this choice all over again.
Well, also when we shift, like when I first got into all this awareness, like I shared in the beginning, one of the first things that came about was that there were advanced civilizations in our past, right? The Sumerians spoke about the Anunnaki, space travel, and all that. The Mahabharata speaking about all this. And then I started really for years, like over a decade, looking and seeing, okay, where is the advanced technology from the past? And I was almost exclusively looking for that until I shifted and realized a lot of these civilizations were at a higher level of consciousness. And when you're at a higher level of consciousness, your need for external satisfaction decreases. And when you don't need the external satisfaction, you stop creating all these devices and vices in order to keep you like in this external world. So as we're going through this shift, right, I have a presentation where I break down why we're shifting. And the last one in it is it's inevitable. The position of our solar system in our galaxy literally is shifting the energy on the planet, right? So there's going to be a continuous awakening. Everything that they do backfires, right? And I don't need to go into everything they've done. And more people wake up and they're realizing that they're not happy. And ultimately, people want love, connection, community, right? So I feel as long as we have some sort of self-awareness, when it gets to a point where we're like, wow, we don't have any of this anymore, there's going to have to be a great awakening. And maybe happens when people's basic needs and comforts are threatened. I can no longer afford groceries. I can no longer do this. So I believe ultimately, and I know you do too, that we're going to be waking up regardless, and our desire for external technology is probably going to decrease in the process.
Yeah, I agree. And again, to put a exclamation point on what I mentioned a moment ago about the singularity, it seems like the next 5 years are the real key. This is where the acceleration has been happening, and now there's also, of course, the counterbalancing acceleration with ascension movements all around the planet, and that is part and parcel of this prophecy of the rise of the children of the light that show a better way to transcend this technology. And again, I just want to be clear, I'm not saying all of it's bad. I'm not even saying that the technology developers themselves are bad people. They're just doing what they think is, in their best interest. But from the ancient perspective, which is what started our conversation, there's been this rivalry between the technologists and those who want to remain organic. And the technologists are the ones that are mimicking, are copying, are trying to say, okay, we can do what you can do organically, we can do better technologically. Okay. And to your point, Neil, we're entering or have already entered the age of Aquarius, the water bearer. And water is a symbol of frequency or vibration. And the way that this plays out in this analogy here is that we're thinking there's a cosmic vibration, maybe coming from the galactic sun or maybe even from our own sun. But the technologists say, yeah, we've got 6 and 7G on the way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they think.
Two
we
different
used to
worlds.
learn that, yeah, exactly. It's like it's completely different sort of concepts. And it's finding a way to perhaps bring some harmony between those two. And in my experience, I don't see a lot of spirituality coming out of Silicon Valley or Beijing, certainly not out of Beijing. They're communists, they're atheists. Silicon Valley, they're characterized by mainly engineer types. They're technologists. And so the rest of us now have to wake up and say, well, wait a minute, you have created this new world for us. We like many aspects of it, but we also want to say and where all of this is going. And this is what has to happen now, is that the people have to be willing or able to sit down with these, as they call them, the tech giants, and say, you yourselves have even expressed dismay and concern about what you're doing. So let's have a global conversation about this and maybe even put a plan together for the future of humanity.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it down to earth and really, because what you've done is really, in a nutshell, explain why we're doing all the work we're doing,
Yeah.
and why Susan's doing her events, why I do mine, why you're doing this. It's really not just to wake people up to these higher vibrational frequencies, but to really see the nitty gritty of what's going on the planet and how we can take action and even demand action, and and consequences and regulations for certain things. There's a whole paradigm that needs to change. It's not just changing things in the higher realms. There's systems on this earth that need to collapse so new ones can be created, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we're in that, I think we're very clearly in that phase or that stage right now. It's in one respect, it's tremendously exciting. And I'm, again, very hopeful that we will be able to navigate through this, even possibly through the advent of avatars that manifest during this time. I mean, that is certainly an aspect of it that we haven't really talked about. And I talked with Marguerite about this. If we've got these parthenogenic priestesses from the Pleiades we know they were in existence up till 2,000 years ago, are they perhaps operating in our world today? Have they already brought this avatar in? And is that being living amongst us now? Has it already been born? My suspicion is that yes, it has, because when you talk about bringing up an avatar like that, we don't have 20 years to wait for this figure, if it's born in 2025, to emerge, right? That figure would have had to have been born 20 years ago and is about to emerge in our world, the way I see it. And so
I can't help but smile, William, because that's probably what the Essene said when Yeshua was coming.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I've never seen
And there's
I've
these
never seen this much
analogies
scene in you. Let's say, go
about
ahead.
the second coming, right? I know
Yeah.
Essenes always resonate. The first time I even heard the word Essenes, I was like, I have to know everything there is to know about the Essenes. But with the second coming, and many have said, we are who we've been waiting for, right? We're activating the star seed DNA, and we're also, moving into Christ consciousness if you have an ascension plan. And but it could also be that there is the second coming of a Christ-like avatar as well.
Right. I mean, that is the prophecy of all the big three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That is the backstory to what is happening in the Middle East with Israel and Iran. They're vying for control. They both have this belief that their Messiah, their avatar, is imminently going to arrive, and they have conflict about exactly how that will happen. But that is the driver behind that conflict between Israel and Iran.
And it has
Right.
to do with the third temple. I know we're running out of time, but
Yes,
do
it
you
does.
have information about that? Because I'm fascinated by that. Are they
Yeah.
built in for the return of the Messiah, or are they
Yeah.
meant to build before? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have a prophecy of the emergence of an avatar, and that avatar is in each of those traditions is symbolized by the exact same device or symbol, which is what the Jews call the Ark of the Covenant and Christians call the Adamastia throne of Christ. That device will be recovered and will be taken to the Temple Mount. The new temple will be built and the avatar will manifest. And what's different is that in Islam, they believe that that avatar is called the Mahdi or 12th Imam, and Jesus is his prophet. Jesus will go get the Ark of the Covenant for the Islamic Messiah and bring it to Jerusalem. And in Iran, they speak of this openly, that this Mahdi figure is due to arrive imminently. And the reason why Iran is seeking to get a nuclear weapon that they can launch on Israel or the United States is because their leaders believe they can accelerate this process by creating mass chaos in the world, which is the preamble to the arrival of this figure. Christians and Jews believe essentially the same thing. So I think the bottom line here is that we're in this time of prophecy. We're in this time of ascension, and it's going to be an edge of the seat kind of experience for us during these next few years. And this is the importance of events like you're hosting, Suzanne, the Ascension Retreat in Sedona. Neil, your work, it's about gathering people together, providing them with connection to like-minded others and reliable information about how to navigate what is coming.
Exactly.
And love and honor you, William, and that you bring in all of the traditions, respecting everyone's beliefs, respecting, everyone's approach to the return of, Christ consciousness or the Messiah in all of the different religions and traditions around the globe. And I just really want to honor you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'd love for in a second here for you to share what you're going to be speaking about at the conference. But I wanted to share one thing because you said the three Abrahamic religions have the return of Messiah. And I just want to read this to you because this might be great for your work, is that, Hinduism has another return as well. And, Lord Vishnu, he incarnated as Rama, he incarnated as Krishna, Christ. There's so many similarities there. But there's a 10th and final incarnation, a future incarnation of Vishnu that's supposed to happen at the end of the Kali Yuga, which is now. And the incarnation is called Kalki, which means dirt or filth, which means the destruction of spiritual impurity and moral decay. And Kalki will appear as a warrior riding a white horse. Now we got like Revelations kind of in there, wielding a blazing sword to eradicate the unrighteousness and end the Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's so powerful. So my topic at the event, I'm going to be talking about Star Walkers and the Dimension of the Blessed. This is a title of a book that I wrote in 2006. And it's about the ancient belief and understanding about humans and in their ability to contact otherworldly beings or extraterrestrials and literally become star walkers. This is a term I derived from the ancient Egyptian Ascension teachings. So I'll be going into detail about that concept and how it's playing out today. I mean, basically, I've spent since 2011, I've been on the History Channel show Ancient Aliens. What I think we're like 18 seasons now. And we have well documented that otherworldly beings came here for millennia. And now I'm turning that around and saying, well, how can we go there? How can we reverse this process and connect with these beings? So that'll be the foundation for my talk. And then my workshop will be about, well, what is your ascension plan? And how are we going to navigate this immediate future and beyond? So I'm really looking forward to having an opportunity to share with everybody up there in Sedona, March 14th through the 16th.
It's going to be amazing. And so everybody tuning in, SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. Go ahead and check it out there. Susan, you want to share anything else about the event?
I'm just getting so excited. It's only 2 months away now, and we're going to have so much fun. It's really about the gathering, like you said, William. It's gathering of like-minded souls, the heart-centered and soul-inspired spiritual community. And we really are all about unity, not divisiveness.
Right.
And that is our focus. So, yes,
that.
come and join us. Take a workshop. Go to William Henry's Making Your Ascension Plan workshop. I'm going to be there. Like I said, his outdoor journey is already sold out. But there's other outdoor journeys you can choose and go on and get out into Sedona's Red Rocks. Even if you don't go on a journey with us, make sure you get out into the Red Rocks while you're there, because there really is a powerful spiraling energy there that's very uplifting.
Yes.
Definitely.
The event is literally a vortex within a vortex.
Yes.
So it's going to be very powerful. So for anybody, again, if you want to check it out, SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. I believe we're going to go live with a few more speakers over the next month, and we'll check you guys then. So William, brother, thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to see you too.
Looking forward to seeing you in a couple months.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Blessings, everyone.
All right,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.